Take a look at this. So what we have here is a MacBook Air, and if you want to upgrade the storage, it's going to cost you $200 for 500 gigabytes. Now, for 1 terabyte, we're paying $400. And what's worse is Apple's only going to give you 1 year warranty of this. Whereas on the PC, we can have a Gen 4 NVMe drive like this one here, the WD Black SN850X. And this one goes for around $300 for 4 terabytes, and they give you a 5-year warranty. Now, if you're not mad already, you probably are now. Well, you can install that into your Mac. You're correct, but you don't have to. Did you know that there are so many other storage options available that offer you longer durability, cheaper options, and are as fast, if not faster? And you can keep your data even if your Mac breaks. So here are 4 different levels of storage for your Mac and Windows if you don't want to pay their overpriced prices. So I've had this idea for a while, and I shared it with my friends at WD, and they were so happy to partner up with this video and show you how you can not just have faster speeds, but also save you a ton of money on the way. So thanks Western Digital for partnering up with this video. So you probably noticed that we're not talking about the internal storage on your Mac, but external storage. So why is it better to have external storage on your Mac? Number 1, your data is safe and stays with you even if your Mac breaks. Something happens, your Mac's gone, but your data is safe. Number 2, you can use it with multiple devices, whether you have a MacBook, whether you have a Mac Mini, Mac Studio, Mac Pro, you can actually share the storage, whereas internal storage is not shared. Number 3, serviceability. If something happens to your storage, hopefully you have a backup, you can either replace it, and you don't have to replace the whole thing. You can just replace the little thing that perhaps had its life now, and then just move on or use something that you already have. And lastly, much longer warranty. I mean, I can't believe that Apple is just offering you a 1-year warranty for their whole device, whereas something like this goes for 5 years, which is insane. And the best thing about these storage solutions is that you might already have some of these drives lying around. Maybe you had a PC, you've got NVMe lying around. Maybe you've got an older PC that's got SATA drives lying around. You might have some of these already. That means you don't have to pay for lots of these extra storage. You can reuse it or recycle your old drives that you already have, making this even more affordable. So I've got 4 different levels of storage drives in here, and then 4 different levels of actual storage as well, how to utilize this and how to get the best speed and price possible. And by the way, if you want to pick up any of these drives that I'm talking about in this video, they are available at Newegg. Just in the video description below on the top line, you can find them in there. Thanks Newegg for partnering up with this video and making this possible. Let's keep going. So level 1 is your SATA drives. Whether you've got a SATA drive or perhaps you've bought some, SATA drives go roughly around 500 to 600 megabytes per second speed. In order to utilize it, there's kind of 2 options. One of them is to get an enclosure just like that. You pop it up and you're gonna just put your SATA drive inside, pop it back up, and then voila, you've got external storage. Now this is gonna go between 500 and 600 megabytes per second, like I said. The other option is docking stations or some kind of extended devices for your Mac Mini, for example here. So your Mac Mini will go on top of it just like that, and it kind of feels like it's one unified option there. But it doesn't just give you a few more ports and is like a little dock. If you look underneath, this drive has a SATA drive port in there. So you can take that same SATA drive, pop it into there, and then pop this back on, and then you can have more storage and have some more ports. I'm going to leave a few options of this in the description below if you don't know that already. And you also have one NVMe port with this option here. There are loads of different ones available for this one, but the thing is, this one only offers you around 500, 600 megabytes per second speeds for the SATA drive. Now, option number 2 is to have a 10 gigabit M.2 enclosure, and I have got absolutely loads of these here. There's lots of different sizes, different shapes. So these here are all 10 gigabits per second, which means that your NVMe that you're going to be putting in there is going to be limited to the USB-C connection speed there. Doesn't matter if it's super fast NVMe or very slow NVMe, it's going to be limited with this interface here, which is 10 gigabits per second. 1 gigabit per second is 120 megabytes per second. So in theory, that's about 1,250 megabytes per second maximum bandwidth through these devices. But the thing is, your M.2s are a few different sizes. You can get the normal size here, which is 2280, which means it's 22 wide and then 80 millimeters long, or you can get these 2230. There are some other sizes available as well, but we'll just stick to these two because they are the most popular. And essentially how this works is you're going to take your enclosure. I have used this one for like 3-4 years now, and if you look inside, I've got this Western Digital SN550, which I think is discontinued now, but this is running solid. And in fact, I'm recording on one of these now. I am using these like all the time. So all you do is just pop the drive in, pop it back down, and then it somehow closes either a hinge or a sliding mechanism, and then you just connect it to your PC and you've got 10 gigabits per second. That's very easy. The other option are these small options in here. There's lots of different 2230 options available that put these tiny ones in if you really want a very small enclosure, a very small kind of a footprint. So if we take a look at this here, this is just like a little rubber kind of cage to protect the drive. You can take it off and you don't have to have this, but look how small this is. All you have to do is slide it up, pop your drive in just like that, and you've got 10 gigabits per second drive speed. It's got even a tiny little fan in here. Then there's also this, which is from Enclosures. I've used multiple of their devices before. They do a lot of enclosure. This is quite fast. The interesting thing about this one is that this has MagSafe. So this is just a magnet in here on the top, but there is something underneath, but this is just a little metal rubber to just show you that it is magnetic. So you can put this on the back of your iPhone and get 10 gigabits per second and record directly onto this drive, which if you look inside, boom, you're gonna pop that tiny little guy in there and you've got 10 gigabits per second. Now the next level is USB 4 and Thunderbolt enclosures. And now the speed is gonna ramp up quite a bit. We're not just 10 gigabits per second, but 40 gigabits per second advertised speeds. But firstly, that is one of the biggest lies that you're gonna get. 40 gigabits per second is 5,000 megabytes per second speed, and you're thinking, wow, 5,000 megabytes per second speed that I'm going to get with this. No, you're absolutely not going to get this. The way USB 4 and Thunderbolt 4 actually layer this bandwidth is not all for data transfer. Some of this is video, some of this is Ethernet, some of this is other, ports and things. So this is combined maximum throughput of USB 4 or Thunderbolt 4. That doesn't mean that all of this can go through this enclosure, what we have here. So here's few different Thunderbolt or USB 4 enclosures, and some of these are better than the others. So we'll start with the Enclosures. So here's one of the older ones, but this has a little bit of an older controller, so I didn't get as fast speed as one of their newer devices here. And this is interesting because this is not just a Thunderbolt 4 NVMe drive, but it also is a little bit of a dock. So you put your USB-C cable into there. And then you have two display outputs. You have two more USB Type A ports and then one USB Type C 10 gigabits on the side. So it expands your I/O of your device. And if you just pull it open, it's got an NVMe drive slot on the bottom, and then this bottom is basically a big heatsink with a fan in there to keep it all cool, which is really, really cool. And here now we're starting to get roughly 2 to 2.5 gigabytes per second speed. I've found that there are actually slightly faster enclosures as well, and I've got three options here. One of them is from ID Sonics. This one is from Quiz Labs. This is probably one of their best ones. And then we have the Ugreen one. All of these support OneDrive, and then they run it around 3,000 to 3,200 megabytes per second speeds, which is absolutely insane. This ID Sonics has a fan inside as well, so it kind of pulls the airflow through. All you do is kind of squeeze it, open it up, you can see the fan in there, put your M.2 in there, and you can see that the M.2 can be whatever size. Here there's different mounting options. I don't particularly like the sliding mechanism on all of the drives because it's not as good to make contact with the thermal pad when it's a hinge or when it's just squeezed on top, because the thermal pad is sticky and it doesn't slide very well, so it doesn't make very good contact rather than just gluing them two together. Then we've got this Quiz Lab one, and this is like pretty insane. The whole thing is a huge, massive heatsink. It's passive, it's going to be quiet, and it's one of the fastest. This Ugreen and like all of these three perform like within 0.5% of error, so they all perform the same, very, very fast. The benefit of this Quizlab and Ugreen are that these are much more quiet. The Ugreen does have a little fan in there as well, but I've never really heard the fan. It does go quite hot, but this Quizlab one is a massive heatsink, a little bit bigger, so if you want a little bit smaller, the Ugreen is the one, but this has the best cooling that I have found and the quietest one. And the Thunderbolt 4 USB 4 speeds are up to 3,200 megabytes per second, which is quite insane. But that is not all. There is one more level, which is an NVMe NAS. And this is for some people who want to take it absolutely seriously and then have the ultimate experience. Basically, this is a NAS, and this supports not one drive, but if I open up this here, as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drives, and it does support the WD Black SN850X drives, 4 terabyte sizes, so you can have 20 terabytes of drives NVMe inside here, and you can get insane speeds, perhaps a little bit faster even than the Thunderbolt 4 enclosures there that were 3,000 something megabytes per second, because this guy actually offers 2 Thunderbolt 4 ports, one in the front, one in the back, and then a 10 gigabit Ethernet as well. So this is for people who need multiple people to connect to it and still get super fast speeds. Now, when you combine the 2 Thunderbolt ports together, they recently released an update where you can do an SMB multi-channel on Thunderbolt, which means you plug 2 of these Thunderbolts to your Mac, whether this is Mac Mini or MacBook Air, you can get 3,000-ish megabytes per second speeds on one device. Plus, you have the 10 gigabit Ethernet port to share all of this speed on a LAN. This is not cheap, but this is the ultimate external level option because you have redundancy of your drives. So even if one of the drives goes kaboom, you just put a new one in, all your data is safe. It's potentially even faster than some of the Thunderbolt enclosures, and you can access this with multiple people. But now the question is, which drives should you get to install into all of these? Because the truth is, you can just get any NVMe that you have lying around or just buy any of them. But you might be wasting money buying the wrong NVMe. And I want to explain to you what are some of the differences in NVMe. And Western Digital here has probably one of the best examples. You have what's called like a low-end drive or a lineup, which is this one here. So this is the WD Blue SN580. And this you can get roughly around $64 per terabyte, which is a lot cheaper than Mac's prices, don't you think? And if you go with 2 terabyte models, the price per terabyte can be even cheaper, which is ridiculous. Now, firstly, all of these drives have a maximum sequential speed of over 4,000 megabytes per second. Whichever drive you're going to go for, they're all going to be limited to the connection of your actual device. Even the faster Thunderbolt can't utilize all of the speed of these drives. So why go with a more expensive one? Well, here's why. The lower end drive has a little bit of a lower terabyte written spec, which means that it's not as durable. If you don't know what terabyte written spec is, it means how many times the NAND, because it consists of little cells that store your data, these cells can be written over only a certain amount of times. Once that period or that written ends, these cells kind of die or they're not usable anymore. So you're going to start to lose capacity, or the drive can just go kapoof. The lower ones have a little bit of a lower rating of that, and they have a lower random read and write speed, because not all of your drives you will be reading kind of sequentially, like in a row. Your files are scattered all over the drive, and if you're doing editing or using lots of assets, you might be using them all from all over. You can even put programs on there, run programs from this. So the random read and write speeds aren't as fast as obviously from inside there, because it's a bit of a lower end drive. But you do get the best price per terabyte speed, and in your workflow, you might not actually tell the difference between this drive and that drive. Then we have this mid-range drive, and this is WD Black SN770. And like the lower end drive, this goes only up to 2 terabytes in sizes. And you can get it in small form factor or like the full length 80 millimeters. It's got a little bit of a higher terabyte written spec, which means a bit more endurance. than the WD Blue. It's got faster random read and write speed compared to the lower end drive. So it's faster doing the random reads and writes. And the price is a little bit higher than the lower one, about $75 per 1 terabyte. If you go 2 terabytes, a little bit cheaper. And then there's the high-end drive, WD Black SN850X. And this one is the fastest drive here, even though sequentially you're not going to get it faster, but because it's got DRAM cache, so it actually has RAM, it's got another chip there that caches the drive, which these two don't have. The random read and write speeds are much faster, and it can sustain those sequential speeds longer because of the DRAM cache. You can also get this at larger capacity, up to 4 terabytes, and the pricing is roughly around $95 per 1 terabyte. If you go a little bit higher, it's obviously lower. Like the 4 terabyte one is around $300, which is not bad at all. Now, how do you initialize the drives then? Now, let's take this, for example, here. We're gonna pop this SN580 in to show you that we don't need fast drive. This holds the drive in place. So you pop this in there, put it in there, and then twist it, and then voila, your drive's been held in place. Then you have a little thermal pad, or even 2 in here. You take the thermal pad, you pop it on the top. That helps the SSD to keep cool inside there. So take the other side off as well. You don't necessarily have a heatsink on top sometimes. Sometimes the actual chassis is the heatsink as well. For example, this Akasis, the thermal pad will be connected to the back of the device there, and some of the others like the U-green one there as well. But sometimes you do have this. So you just pop that one in there, make sure this is a nice contact, slide it back in, it's all done. And then you take the cable that came with it. This one comes with also USB-C to Type A. So if you go to the PC or some USB Type A ports, you can get connection there as well. Bear in mind, you're not going to get 40 gigabits per speed anymore with this one. You only get 10 maximum if you go with one of those ports there. So I'm just gonna pop this side into there. Let's pull our MacBook Air closer. I'm gonna pop it in there. And then now what should happen is, okay, it already showed up for me because I've already done this. But basically you might have a little screen on there that says like initialize the drive or can't connect to the drive, ignore, whatever. Just press either cancel or initialize. Both of them will do the same thing, but what we have to do is go to disk, utility on Mac, and here you can see external, you can see something's connected through there, and there it goes. All you have to do is click this erase button, type in the name, and then now the format. Which format are we gonna go for? Now, here it doesn't actually show me the option to go exFAT, because I've already initialized this drive here. But if you do want to use Windows and Mac at the same time and transfer files on the same device between like 2 separate operating systems, I highly recommend going with exFAT because that's the one that's supported on Mac OS and on Windows, if that makes sense. But if you're only using Apple, go with the APFS format. What that basically means is it's an Apple format, but also it's journaled, which means that if you have a loss of power or something happens to your device, your data is going to be a little bit more safe, or it can actually just continue writing it, or the data is a little bit more safe in case of like a power surge or a power loss. All you do is erase, and all it does now is voila, it's all done, completed. And there we have it. Make sure you don't do it on your Macintosh HD, but on the Western Digital Blue one. And then it is just available in here. As you can see, I don't have any large files here, but if we do the speed test there, let's take a target disk here, Western Digital, press start. As you can see, look, our write speeds are 3000 something megabytes per second, and this is the lowest end of the drive. The SN580 can go up to 4150 megabytes per second, but as you can see, our enclosure in terms of sequential is limited that speed. And read speed, look at that. That's like as fast as I got it with the Western Digital SN850X. But bear in mind, in your workflow, you might be better going with the higher end model just because of the random read and write speeds, which are arguably more important than this here. Okay, here's the best thing. Let's say you get sick of Apple and later you want to use these drives on Windows. If you're going to plug these guys into your Windows actual PC, into the motherboard, you're actually going to get 2 to 3 times the speeds of the drive. So this drive is going to be 3000 megabytes per second. When you plug it in, you're gonna get over 7,000 megabytes per second. That's 2+ times the speed of this. And the last point is the warranty. Now, what drives me mad is Apple only offers you 1 year warranty. Now they want you to go to the Apple Care and buy more warranty and blah, blah, blah. But these drives have 5 years warranty. It's 5 times longer than what Apple offers you, which is just ridiculous. Now, even if you go with one of these enclosures and 4 terabytes of this, you're still gonna get about 4 times more storage for the same price as Apple has internally, because if I just choose the same drive now internally and do the test of my MacBook Air here, which I have upgraded the storage as well, as you can see, the write speed's a little bit slower than what we have on the external one, 2,700 something. Now read speeds got there in the end, but as you can see, it starts lower and then gets the read speeds a little bit higher. So write speeds definitely faster on our drive, read speeds about the same. And this is the M3 model with the latest right now available hardware. Okay, I hope you can see that you can get faster and more storage with these options there. I'm gonna leave these in the description below, all of the Western Digital drives, so you can get different options in there. Bear in mind, when you go with this NAS version, don't buy any drives in there because not everything is supported, but the SN850X is supported in there. Highly recommend getting that one when going this one. I've got more videos about this NAS out there, how to set it up, how am I using long-term usage if you want to learn more. Everything in the description below. Thanks WD and Newegg for making this video possible. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.